name is Steffen Nijhuis. I'm a full professor and head of the section Landscape Architecture at Delft University of Technology. I'm also a board member of ICOMOS Netherlands. The theme of my speech is on landscape basis, water heritage for sustainability. Basically, I'm presenting a landscape approach in which water heritage takes center stage. Here, the understanding of the landscape system and the related natural and social-cultural processes, landscape logic, is used as the basis for sustainable development of urban and rural regions across the globe. The core of the approach consists of designing with nature, people, and history. Loss of biodiversity, increasing inequality, climate change, urbanization, are significant challenges of this century. For instance, it is expected that 68% of the world's population will live in urban areas by 2050. Furthermore, cities will become 2 to 3.5 times larger than they are now. All this urbanization is at the expense of vulnerable nature areas that protect us and provide us with water and food. But what can be the role of water heritage in this perspective? In order to avert the negative consequences of urbanization and to contribute to sustainable development, an approach is needed that takes the landscape as the basis for the benefit of socially and ecologically inclusive urban and rural landscapes. This is aptly visualized in the so-called wedding cake model developed by the Stockholm Resiliency Center, in which the 17th sustainability goals have been ordered hierarchically. Here, the economy is not taken as the point of this departure, but instead, nature and humans, the landscape, are the basis for sustainable change. Landscape plays a central role in this argument. But what exactly is landscape? Landscape, as we see it, is the result of the activity of natural and human factors and the interaction between them. We can therefore understand landscape as an image, how we humans perceive and value it, but also as a pattern, the spatial mosaic of types of land, units of soil and vegetation and land use. Together, they form a complex and living ecosystem that has emerged from the interaction of relief, soil, water, climate, flora, fauna, and human intervention. So, landscape is not just nature or greenery, but also cultural history, as humans play an important role in its formation. In that regard, it is interesting to have a look at different types of drainage and irrigation landscapes across the world. Like here are some examples from India, Netherlands, Iraq, and China. In these areas, water is managed artificially, so people can live and work there. And this often century-old interaction between man and water has produced a rich variety of water landscapes and provide valuable lessons on water management, food production, and urban development. In fact, these drainage and irrigation landscapes are territorial expressions of the interaction of physical conditions, knowledge and management in a particular cultural and political context, and should therefore be considered as valuable cultural heritage that represent accumulated knowledge on water management that was produced in an incremental trial and error process over centuries, and successful practices were handed over in generations. Therefore, this cultural heritage entails material aspects with traditional water management and landscape features for provisioning and protection against water, like here, this historical levee, but also immaterial cultural heritage, such as indigenous and traditional environmental knowledge, water practices, and local traditions, like here the traditional cheese market connected to the typical Dutch polder landscape. How can we make use of this historical knowledge? How can we make it operational? Therefore, we can also consider landscape as an approach to connect the past with the present and the future. First, by revealing its landscape logic, thus understanding and valuing the landscape as historic and systemic context. Two, by developing strategies and principles based on this logic. And three, developing plans and providing action perspectives by developing new business models and the implementation of that. The heart of the approach is about co-creating knowledge and ideas with local people, businesses, politicians, and other stakeholders. Such an approach takes the processes and functioning of nature as the foundation for planning and design. Ecosystems restoration, management, and rehabilitation are employed as formative powers, as illustrated by the Markerwadden, newly built islands in the center of the Netherlands to increase the biodiversity, water purification, and recreation. And at the same time, they are a cultural expression of creating new land. Such an approach makes also use of cultural historical landscape structures and elements, as demonstrated in the east of the Netherlands, where we reactivated historical water structures to increase the sponge capacity and recharge the groundwater and provide farmers with new forms of income. And without romanticizing the past, it is clear that local or indigenous knowledge often represents an accumulation of centuries of wisdom and experience when it comes to nature conservation, agriculture, and water management. That we can still use this, for instance, to prevent drought, is shown by the reconstructed historical water meadow system at het Lankheet near Haaksbergen in the Netherlands, where plots of land can be irrigated with water from streams in the winter in order to fertilize the land and replenish the groundwater. Or what can we learn from circularity from the Mulberry Dyke fish pond system in southern China, one of the most circular agricultural systems in the world, where silk, fish, and food production form a closed chain. This and many other examples show how traditional ecological knowledge can be used for realizing self-sufficient communities and how we can deal with local resources in a sustainable way. Water heritage is therefore an important basis for the development of landscape-based solutions, while exploring the potential of traditional water management in relation to climate adaptation, biodiversity development, CO2 reduction, and urban green structures. In order to bring this further, it is important to develop understanding and knowledge, strategies and design principles, and action perspectives that address the relation between landscape, water, and heritage values, but also include the tangible and intangible aspects of water. This research agenda asks for action through knowledge development, providing clues for preservation and transformation. In the first place, by continuing creating overviews, scientific overviews of historical drainage and irrigation landscapes, while addressing landscape systems, structures, elements, and practices. Also, by identifying and underpinning of planning strategies and design principles for the protection and multifunctional use of traditional water management with regards to social inclusion, biodiversity, and climate adaptation. And of course, let's not forget sustainable food production. Landscape-based solutions and valuation are key factors. Research into the potential supporting, provisioning, and regulating and cultural values of water heritage is needed to make them operational and prove that they can provide economically viable solutions. And therefore, we also need to analyze, monitor, and compare the performance of traditional water management systems in relation to these values. If you want to read more about this landscape approach, feel free to look up these publications by scanning the QR code. Thank you very much.